if you sort of blindly follow what the mainstream media narrative was telling you, you would think that it's Gaza. I believe we have a clip of what's going on at the student protest. Watch this. So, Ali, what I want you to do right here is very interesting. Replay this, and I'm going to have you pause for a second. And I'm going to show you the specific locations that they highlighted in this TikTok. Okay? So replay that. Go ahead. Pause it for a second. Now, it turns out Columbia, everything up there, Columbia, Cornell, UCal Berkeley, USC, Vanderbilt University, UNC, UT Austin. These are all what I would call higher institutions of learning. These are some of the hardest schools you can possibly get into, especially up there in the Northeast, Yale, Harvard, elite universities, the Ivy League. Now, you might be thinking, certainly for Gen Z, this is the most important issues. We've seen all the campus protests. We see what's going on. This is their number one issue, right? Well, wrong. It turns out that it's just the most expensive elite schools that care about this. I believe we have an image of its, scroll down a little bit. If you could show this. Keep going down. I'll tell you when. Nope. Keep going. Boom, protests and affordability of private institutions. So you might be saying, what are you talking about, Sals? What's going on right here? It turns out that the more a school costs, $20,000, $40,000, $60,000, $80,000, that the more, all of a sudden, the students care about what's going on around the world, around the globe, specifically in Gaza. What does that mean? So are you saying that most people don't care about what's going on in Gaza? Well, yes. The green maps, here's what they did. No protests were going on basically from the 20 to the 80. This is percent of Pell Grant students, meaning Pell Grants basically are for low income students. Your average student, normal people out there just going to school. They're focusing on their bills. They're focusing on their books. They're focusing on their grades. They're not focusing on Gaza. They're focused on what's going on here in the United States. Overwhelmingly, no protest. Then, as you can see it, where it's a little more expensive schools, above 40,000, closer to 60,000, and very limited Pell Grants, that's sort of the top left, is where you start to see some protests, but no encampment. But the encampments in all green are all the elite, high-end universities out there. How could this be? What do you mean? If you go to the actual article, if you scroll out, you can ask the question, have pro-Palestinian protests taken place disproportionately at elite colleges, all the way to the top? Well, the answer is resoundingly yes. So if you can punch down to this article, make it a little bit smaller so I can read it. Here's what the article highlights. Scroll down just a little bit, Ali. Keep going down. So it turns out the average person is just trying to work on their grades, their books, their bills. So the student protesters at college campuses nationwide, united by their outrage at Israel's action in Gaza, can rightly be described as diverse. We understand that. Despite the masks, it's clear they come from different and racial backgrounds, and their views range from the belief that Israel should give up its war effort to the conviction of that Israel should be destroyed entirely. Very, very interesting. But one thing is not especially diverse about the protests, the campuses on which they've been happening. Keep scrolling down. Many of the high-profile protests have occurred at highly selective colleges like Columbia University. We talked about the elite universities here. Columbia, Harvard, Yale, Cornell, USC, Cal Berkeley, Emory, Texas. Some of the hardest, most elite schools to get in, hardest schools to get in. But since the national media is famously obsessed with these schools and gives far less attention to the tens of thousands of other kids at colleges where most Americans get their post-secondary education, it's hard to know how widespread the campus unrest has really been. So we at the Washington Monthly have tried to get to the bottom of this question. Have the pro-Palestinian protests taken place proportionately at elite colleges where few students come from lower income families? Well, the answer is resoundingly yes. So what does that mean? So if you scroll up to the top of the article, are Gaza protests happening mostly at elite colleges? It turns out the answer is yes. Now, you might think, well, all kids care about what's going on in Gaza. It's their number one issue. Well, Bill Maher actually talked about this a couple weeks ago on his program. He actually highlighted, just a second ago, we talked about all the issues the American voter cared about: the economy, immigration, the border, what's going on there, gun control, housing, healthcare, corruption. Turns out it's exactly the same thing for Gen Z voters. We've been lied to by the mainstream media, especially during graduation season, that it's only Gaza. It's the number one thing. According to Bill Maher, here's the top 7: inflation, healthcare, housing, gun violence, jobs, corruption, protecting democracy. The list continues to another page, and it turns out, you have that one? It turns out Gaza isn't anywhere near the top 10. Crime number 11, climate change number 12, taxes 13, free speech. There's Israel-Palestine number 15. You would think that Gaza is the number one issue according to the media. Well, we've been lied to by the mainstream media. It's not in the top 10. It's barely in the top 15 for Gen Z. And it's not in the top 20 for anyone in America. Are you telling me that the media is sensationalizing what's going on in Gaza? No. Could it be? Well, I've got some news for you. So, could it be that at the most elite liberal of institutions, we saw that Harvard was last place in free speech. Harvard's slogan is Veritas, which is truth. Could it be that the most liberal high-end university Ivy Leagues are completely woke? We talked about the horseshoe theory, where the far right and the far left are closer than they appear. Here's what's going on in all of colleges. Professors are getting more liberal. As you can see, liberal skyrocketing up in purple, moderate sort of going a little bit further down, and conservatives barely at 20%. They said that 1 in 13 college professors are conservative, the rest trend liberal. So here's some more anecdotal evidence for you. At Harvard, here's what's going on there. In Harvard specifically, Harvard faculty political leanings, very liberal, almost 30%. Liberal, almost 50%. So that's 30 and almost 50. That's a vast majority of professors who are liberal to very liberal. That's 50, that's 30, that's almost 80%. Now you have 20% that's moderate, and then a sliver, 2 to 3% that is conservative to very conservative. What are these kids supposed to learn while in college when all their elite professors are Marxists? There it is right there. It's not just Harvard, there's Yale as well. Do you have some evidence on what's going on in Yale? Here's that. Breakdown of political leanings of Yale professors. 8% conservative, 18% moderate, and then you have 75% liberal to very liberal. So when we talk about these kids being indoctrinated, not educated, could it be that when they go to these liberal Ivy League institutions, the hardest universities to get into in the planet, some may say, that they're being taught by woke, Marxist, communists, collectivists, critical race theory, DEI injecting, anti-capitalist teaching, intersectional oppressor-oppressed mentality, anti-capitalism, anti-patriarchy, anti-white mentality? No way. Could it possibly be? The evidence is right there in your face. But, as they say, that's what's going on at college, and those who can't do, teach. Those who can do, actually start a business. And as it turns out, businesses are actually very pro-capitalism. And they're basically saying, I hear you guys over at college are very not into capitalism, but we are over here as we're starting a business. And it turns out that employers are very reluctant to hire the graduates who've been attending these pro-Palestinian protests. Some may say pro-Hamas protests. Some may say pro-terrorism protests. I'll let you be the judge of that. But they're saying, listen, we're not very comfortable injecting Marxist, communist ideas into our business. I know that you're woke and you believe that you're woke to the plights of what's going on in society, but not at our business because we want to make money. So I assume the parents of these kids actually made money to afford the ability to send them to these colleges. And I know that the people that donate, the donors that are putting tens of billions of dollars into these endowments, certainly are not feeling what's going on there. Here's some evidence of what they're saying at these companies, of why they're not going to be hiring or maybe considering hiring these pro-Palestinian protesters. Some may say pro-Hamas terrorist sympathizers. 64% of employers have become concerned about hiring graduates in the past 5 years. 64% of employers have become concerned, saying, yeah, I don't know about these kids out there, this Gen Z, this woke mind virus that Elon Musk calls it. I don't know about hiring these kids. 1/3 are scared of pro-Palestinian protesters due to fears of confrontational behavior and being too political and bringing politics into the workplace. 21% of employers appreciate protesters for their outspokenness and strong values, where 57% say, I'm remaining neutral. I want no part of this situation right here. Don't bring this into my place of business. 31% of interviewers ask about the protest involvement. 54% rarely ask, meaning in interviews, almost 1/3 of interviews ask kids about their involvement in these protests. Is that crazy? 54% say they don't really ask. Listen, I'm all for peaceful protest. I'm all for it. But I think we've seen some of these protests have not exactly been peaceful. And in many cases, they're calling for death and destruction of Jews on campus and Jews around the world. I challenge your thought system. Let it be any other group other than Jews, and let them do that on campus. Let me know how they work out. Hey, blacks, you're not allowed here on campus. What? Outrage. Gays. What? Women. What? LGBTQ. Trans, you're not allowed to be here. Fat people, you're not allowed to be here. Mexican people, Asian people. Say what? But the only group that seems to be the only type of group where you could say, sorry, guys, you're not allowed here on campus, it's the Jews. Why is that? I'm asking a question. I'm not even stating a fact. But it seems, a little bit of fishy. As they famously say, no Jews, no news. You see, when all the wars that are going on around the world, I believe we have an infographic of all the world's ongoing conflicts. If you see what's going on campus, if you see what's going on all around the world with these protests, you would think, wow, the only war in the world right now is what's going on in Gaza. We got to stand for this. Well, it turns out there's dozens of wars going on out there, and most wars have way more deaths than what's going on in Gaza. By the way, the Russian-Ukrainian war, how many hundreds of thousands of people have died in that war? Azerbaijan, Armenia, the Kurds, the Turks. We know about the Israeli-Palestinians, the civil war in Afghanistan, in Yemen, what happened right there, the civil war. Hundreds of thousands of people killed in the civil war, zero protest. Where's the protest? I thought you were anti-war protest. Yemen, there's been a, people just found out about the term Houthis recently. I've heard about this civil war in Yemen for over a decade. Silence. Because if it's Muslims killing Muslims, it's not a big deal. It's another day in paradise. It's all good. That's what goes on in the Middle East. Let Israel defend their homeland. Oh my God. It's what's going on here. Libya, Sudan, millions of people have died in Sudan. Okay, it's not the tens of thousands that's going on in Israel, Gaza. Millions in Sudan. Have you heard one word about this? Not a peep. Okay, in Iran, subjugating their citizens. The crackdown on women. Not a word. Not a peep. Silence. There's wars going all around in Africa, in West Africa. The countries in West Africa, there's terrorist jihadi groups that are annihilating people in West Africa. Do you know what's going on there? No, because it's not on there. Al-Shabaab in Somalia and in Kenya. You don't see one word about that. Why would we talk about it? Mali, Ethiopia, Kenya. These are things that are never mentioned. But God forbid Israel tries to defend themselves, it's a genocide. Ask yourself this following question. Why is this one group being the only group that people are protesting about? I ask you that. It's what's going on there. Could it be that anti-Semitism is still a thing? I don't know. I don't know. But it seemed to be rearing its ugly head here in America on college campuses and around the world. I'll ask you this. I got into a little argument with my friend Vinny on the PBD podcast today. I said, you know, you talked about the 40 people that were killed in the latest drone strike, but you didn't mention that there were 8 missiles shot into the most populated city in Israel, Tel Aviv. We left that part out. So it's interesting how facts are conveniently left out to help a narrative. I'm not interested in a particular narrative. I'm interested in the truth. And the truth is, unfortunately, if there's no Jews, there's no news. There's wars going on all over the world. Nobody cares. And just to kind of give it a ribbon on the end of this segment here, it's the economy, stupid. They polled everyone around America. What's going on there? Gaza is not on anyone's list except the protesters. But we'll see what happens there. Whoa, whoa, whoa. If you like that one, click right here to watch the full SOSCAST. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.